A few of you have actually already noticed, but I very recently passed the 60,000 subscriber mark, and I couldn't be more excited. I've had different mindsets depending on which subscriber mark you go back to. I've made videos about a lot of them. I think 10K and 15K and 25K, the most recent one being 50K, and this is a big deal. I think the direction of my channel has changed a bit since that like 50,000 subscriber mark, where I was really focused on, I think at that point I was making way more pack openings than I really wanted to ever in my YouTubing career, so we've really scaled back on those ones, and this is exciting. It's exciting because that means, I mean, even though technically every number past the 50,000 mark, like 50,001, I was closer to 100K than I was 0. I think it's really cool now that I am like 60% of the way to 100,000 subscribers. I'm more than halfway, officially by like that 10,000 mark, so we have 40,000 subscribers to go, and I'm really just going to keep trying. I really do want to be one of the few lucky YouTubers, or YouTubers I should say, not necessarily with YouTubing, but with YouTubers, I really want to be one of the few that sort of makes their mark on the YouTubing history by becoming one of the 100,000 subscriber channels. Now, it'll take about a year and a half if we keep going like this, so it's going to be a little while, but I do think that I just want to let you guys know that I am really trying to meet that mark. I'm not really going to just quit halfway through. I really do want to hit that mark. That'll be a huge milestone for me, as in terms of having this as a career. Hitting that 100,000 subscriber mark will be huge. I also think this is really cool. I kind of mentioned this when I hit the 50,000 subscriber mark, but now that I've kind of passed a lot of my competition, it's not really competition, but my colleagues, because a lot of people, sort of the bigger channels that I think of, are right around that 50,000, but just under 60,000. So by hitting that 60,000 mark, I have slowly but surely overcome a lot of my competition, and I think that's exciting simply for the reason that I am, like, of all the other YouTubers out there that are this size, I am like the quietest, the most soft-spoken. That's nothing to say like it's bad to talk differently than I do, but a lot of the big YouTubers are really loud and they yell a lot, and that's perfectly fine. That's just not who I am. And especially when I was watching like the Yugi No thing, if you guys haven't heard, he's stopped making videos now, and he said that one of the reasons that he had to stop making videos is because every time he got on the camera he had to act like this different character, someone who he wasn't. And I try to not do that. If I was up here every single day shouting, I couldn't handle it, so I just talk the way that I talk in real life, maybe a little more polished. Obviously there's a little bit more preparation that goes into making videos than just normal talking, but pretty much I talk like I normally talk. If you've ever met me in an event, you know that this is just how I sound, and I think it's really cool that amongst all the louder YouTubers, the YouTubers in particular, I have been able to sort of surpass a lot of people just by being myself and talking about the game that I love and that you love, and that's really exciting. So I have a lot more planned for the coming summer and then into the fall. We'll get to that more in a couple other videos. I'll probably just not announce what I'm doing and just do it. But in today's video, I wanted to, as a sort of celebration of meeting the 60,000 subscriber mark, I wanted to go through and read some of your guys' questions that you had for me now that I've made this milestone. One person asked, what was your favorite Yuga card as a kid, and what is your favorite card now? Well, my favorite card as a kid was actually my first card, which was Launcher Spider. I was actually recently pretty excited that we finally got the OCG artwork for that card, but man, I try to put Launcher Spider in like every deck. I even use that that dumb machine equip spell to boost it to 2500 attack, and that was like my signature card back in the day. Recently though, I'd probably say that Brilliant Fusion is like the card that I most identify with, although Swap Frog is kind of up there as well, being more like a monster card. With Brilliant Fusion, it's kind of hard because it's not actually a monster card, and usually when you think of like ace monsters for characters, they're usually going to be monster cards, whereas Brilliant Fusion is a spell card. But I still think that if we're just talking about the sheer number of decks that I've put a card into, it has to be Brilliant Fusion. Someone asked, why do you hate Dark Magician so much? Now, this is kind of a funny story, and I think it's not as crazy of an explanation as you're going to think it is, but what I've found by talking about cards in the past is that for some reason, people just love Dark Magician, and they also seem to overestimate how good that deck is, and even more so, I mean, don't tell anyone that I said this, but maybe even more so than Chaos Max Dragon, because at the very least, Chaos Max Dragon is is a playable card. It's just not an optimal card. But in the case of Dark Magician and Dark Magician decks, they're almost all, I mean, they're so much worse than the Blue Eyes decks. And I like Dark Magician growing up as a kid, but once I finally started playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, I kind of just got away from Dark Magician and Blue Eyes and all those cards. But coming back and looking at like 2016 format where we had Blue Eyes as a top deck, I can look at that deck in that format and say, you know what, Blue Eyes actually was a pretty good deck, and now look at it now and say, okay, it's kind of fallen from grace. But with Dark Magician, the deck's never been good, and yet there's like this army of players that constantly comment on my videos whenever I mention Dark Magician, saying like, oh, you're just playing it wrong, or oh, you've never played against a good Dark Magician player. And I think it's one of the most toxic sort of communities around a deck that I've ever seen. So I kind of rag on Dark Magician specifically because I'm not a fan of the deck or the community that plays that deck. Somebody asked, what compelled you to start a career as a YouTuber, and how has that affected your life? Well, nothing really propels you to start a career as a YouTuber other than realizing that you can do it as one. What I mean by that is that it's a really, really bad idea to start YouTubing in hopes for it to become your career. I was YouTubing for a long time before I even started monetizing my videos, only like at the start of 2017 that I actually started putting ads on them. And it wasn't until around September, right at the end of 2017, when I started to realize, hey, I'm actually making more money on YouTube, even not uploading like full-time, than I am at my part-time job. Maybe I can actually quit. And by the end of September, I was ready to quit my part-time job working at a retail store to finally just fully look at YouTube, in combination, of course, with my college, which I thought was very important as well. So in October, October 1st, actually, I quit my daytime job to just do YouTube. And it's a little different because when you're in college, you sort of have leeway as far as how much money you're making, because for a college student I was making like crazy money, but for someone that was graduating college it wasn't that crazy amount of money. But luckily by the time that like February rolled around, I was making really good money on YouTube, so I decided that by the time I graduated, as long as I was staying on track, which I have stayed on track, I would just do YouTube full-time as my job. And that's what I've been doing for the past month and a half. It's really fun. I get to set my own schedule, I get to talk to you guys, I get to go to events, I don't have to ask for days off or anything. It's stressful, it certainly is, and I've talked about that in other videos, but I think that for now this is where I want to be for the foreseeable future until I just find something better. But right now I really do love YouTube, and I love waking up every day and making a video. It's a lot of fun for me, and you guys seem to enjoy it a lot. So I think for now we're going to be doing this as my career, but we'll see in a couple of years where I'm left off and where I want to go to. Someone asked, what would Yu-Gi-Oh be like without the extra deck? And that's kind of a funny answer, because I talked about this when I mentioned why I don't like Duel Links. And one of the things that I find when I play Yu-Gi-Oh without an extra deck, such as like in Battle Pack 3, which I'm a big fan of, that format's just like so good that it's hard not to be a fan of it. But if we're talking about like one of the issues I have with playing Duel Links is that there isn't an extra deck, and the reason is that without an extra deck, there's so many random horrible strategies that can suddenly be viable simply because you don't have an extra deck full of ways to out them. I think if you're playing a Ring 4 deck, you have Castel, you have Diamond Direwolf, you have Tornado Dragon, all these different tools. I mean, the extra deck is kind of like a toolbox for many of those Rank 4 strategies. You have all these ways to deal with potentially problematic monsters, which means that those types of decks aren't actually going to be good. I think pretty much the best place to look at is that massive morph card that's limited in Duel Links. That card should not be good. The fact that you can flip that card, or 3 of them, and your opponent simply can't get rid of their monsters to actually attack you directly, that just shouldn't happen in Yu-Gi-Oh! And without an extra deck, those types of cheesy strategies actually are way more viable. So the reason that I like the extra decks, even though they actually might sort of make Yu-Gi-Oh! Harder for some people to play, because it is fairly complicated to keep updated with all the extra deck mechanics, the reason I like it is simply because it provides you with so many options as a player to not lose to just random decks. Someone says, do you think you'll ever get to the point Yugi Nono is at right now? So I kind of talked about it at the beginning of the video, but he basically said that he just outgrew the game, and he had been doing Yugi tubing for like a year longer than he was really interested in the game, if not longer. And I think I will get to that point. It's hard to say when. At the moment, I'm just so invested in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've really never felt like I needed to quit the game, or that I really wanted to take like a long break from it. I have taken breaks. Late 2007 or 2015 was like the most recent time that I really took a break. But other than that, I mean, I like this game so much. I play a lot of other games like Hearthstone and Overwatch, and I sort of dabbled in Pokemon as well. but I keep coming back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Nothing quite can beat Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck building in my mind. Like, whenever a ban list is dropped in Yu-Gi-Oh! I just want to like go through all my cards and start like making new decks and stuff. And while I'm sure that eventually will pass, I'm still relatively young compared to a lot of the other Yu-Gi-Tubers that think that you're unless like YouTube just gets destroyed or something and I have to get another job to actually pay my bills. Unless that happens, I think you're kind of stuck with me for a while. Someone asked, do you think all monsters that can interrupt your opponent's turn should be banned so that going second isn't a handicap and many more decks will be playable? I'm actually assuming that by leaving this comment, you're sort of saying that you don't play modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I actually think going second actually isn't that bad right now. We have cards like Evenly Matched, Infinite Impermanence, all sorts of hand traps. Going second is not as bad as it used to be, especially if you think back to like before 2014 when we drew 6 cards going first and there weren't as many hand traps. I mean, going second was such an obvious you just lost that game, but nowadays not only is going second a lot easier because of cards like Evenly Matched, love it or hate it, it's a good card going second and it helps out a lot of strategies. Not only that, but you also start with one more card than your opponent, and also I think this can be shown by the fact that over the past year we've actually seen several going second strategies. By the end of Spiral format, the second one at least, going second spirals were actually considered the best deck compared to going first spirals, simply because going second spirals could play so many hand traps. And whether or not you think playing hand traps is a good thing or healthy for the game, I think the fact remains that just if we're looking at the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now is probably the best time to be going second, and also it's probably the time when the die roll has mattered the least amount. Someone else asked, what is your fondest Yu-Gi-Oh! Memory and what advice would you give to starting Yu-Gi tubers? So that's sort of like a double-barreled question, but I'll answer both. So my fondest Yu-Gi-Oh! Memory, I think, would be my first top 8 at a regional. It was just so cool because I really was just going in that regional to get my invite, and heading into the last round, I was X1, and all I was thinking was, oh my gosh, I got my invite. Even if I lose this game, I'll still get my invite to the WCQ, but then I dominated the first game, and I was like, oh crap, I actually do have a chance to get my first regional top, and I did, and it was really exciting. It's just, nothing quite beats your first actual top. I mean, if you don't know the difference between like an invite and a top, certainly if you've gotten your invite before and then you actually top something, you'll instantly realize how much different it is just getting to that top 8 compared to just anyone in the top 32. You get the prizes, you got the deck box, you got the mat, you can play on the mat at the next event, people ask you if you want it, and you can say yes. It's just, it instilled a certain sense of confidence in me that hopefully I carried for pretty much the last couple years, and that really got me hooked on competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And then as far as advice for starting out for new Yu-Gi tubers, I would just say just have fun. Like, it sounds stupid, but really you can't really, like I said earlier, you can't really start YouTube hoping it's your career, especially if we're looking at like Yu-Gi tubing. There's like less than 10 Yu-Gi tubers that actually do this as their only job. So really, if you're starting out, just make videos that you would want to watch and that you'll have fun watching with your friends, that kind of stuff. Just have a good time. Someone says, it's another day, but there's no dinosaur. Where's our dinosaur, Dzeeff? So if you don't know what he's referring to, I've been live streaming the past couple weeks, pretty much every day since or right before the WCQ for about 2 weeks straight. And the title is sort of related to that question. And the reason that I haven't been live streaming recently is because it's like so ridiculously hot right now in Michigan. I mean, you see I have a fan right here, and when I'm recording, I can't have the fan on, obviously, because it's super loud and annoying. And I suppose I have in the past on some live streams where I've had the fan on, but I know it's like annoying to listen to. So the main reason that I haven't been live streaming is simply because it's like 90 to 100 degrees here, which for some people they're like, oh, it's not that hot, but for Michigan people it is like ridiculously hot. I just heard on the news that like last summer we had by the end of the whole summer we had 11 days that were over 90 degrees, and that's from like May to September. This summer so far we've already had 10 days over 90 degrees and plenty of days that were in high 80s, but the heat index was like 100. So yeah, it's just really freaking hot here. So I probably won't be streaming unless I break down and just do a stream where I have the fan on, or if it cools down eventually. Someone asks, how would you fix Blaze Chaos Max Dragon to make it viable? The answer is actually pretty simple. All that would make this card viable really as like a rogue strategy is if you could search it with pre-preparation of rights. Now I do want to add the caveat there that I'm not really trying to search chaos form with pre-prep, which would be like the thing that you would think you would be able to search it with, but I want to be able to search chaos max and advanced ritual art with pre-prep. I actually think in that case the card would actually be fairly decent. Anyway though, that is going to wrap up all the questions that I'm going to answer. Maybe I'll do another Q&A video when we hit like 70,000 subscribers. Make sure to look out in the coming weeks. I'm going to be trying some new types of videos, some new discussion topics. I keep posting on the community tab, getting some suggestions from you guys. I'm trying to keep track of all the best ones. You guys might have noticed that several of the videos that I've made in this past week have come from that community tab. So if your suggestion got picked, congratulations. You're good enough to be a Yugi tuber. But no, I really do appreciate your guys' feedback, and thank you so much for 60,000 subscribers. I can't wait to see what comes in the next couple months here. I will see you guys later though. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.